I wanted to talk to you about your interview with Nico Lodeiro. You talked to him after this game against Houston. It was the return of Nico, the Nico Lodeiro revenge game, and I thought the ceremony was great. They honored him in the right way. They put all the trophies that he won with this club out on the stage, on the podium that he was on, and just looking at that trophy hall, I was like, God, that is such an alpha trophy hall. Like, you got the literal Champions League one in the middle, you got the 2 MLS Cups, you've got 4 conference championships. So I thought that was just like a beautiful visual representation of his legacy. He seemed very emotional and appreciative of the fan reception that he got. And really, I thought what was partially what was disappointing about how the game went for Seattle was that attendance was actually pretty good, relative to what it's been in a couple of the games this year. There was over 30K there. The crowd was buzzing, and then you get the scoreless draw. But I did like how they honored Nico. But you talked to him after the game, and you asked him a little bit about the report that you had earlier this year about how he actually was aiming to return to Seattle. Apparently, he said, I'll take the vet minimum. The salary is not a concern. I just want to go home and play for the club that I love, go back to the city I love, type of thing. And apparently the Sounders said no. And he seemed, I guess let's start with that. You talked to him about it after the game, and he seemed, I would say, it's fair to say he seemed hurt by that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he seemed hurt. I thought that he was cordial and he was respectful towards Brian Smetzer. But if you go back and you look at the answer that Brian gave about their interaction, and you go back and look at what Nico said about the interaction, is exactly the same, because it's so limited. Is we looked at each other, he said, you deserve this, I said thank you, and that was it, right? Clearly not what you would expect from a coach-player duo that won 4 Western Conference championships, like you said, 2 MLS Cups, and 1 CCL. Beyond that, he opened up about how things played out. And I thought it was interesting that he said, as soon as Orlando told me that they were going to buy me out, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, the first thing I did was call Brian, because I wanted to come home. I wanted to retire. They were going to have no salary responsibilities. So I wanted to come home. And he said they must have their reasonings, and I respect it, but they said no. And he actually said, I'm kind of glad that we're talking about this, because I want people to know how things played out, and that I tried to come home and it didn't happen. Another thing that I thought was interesting was that he mentioned that he talked to Adrian at one point, he talked to Craig at one point, talked to Brian. So it was multiple layers of that front office and, coach that he approached the team to. And now he's happy. He says, you know what, it's time to move on. He mentioned the fact that he is happy in Houston. He really likes the team, the teammates, the fan base apparently is very warm. So he enjoys it. He does miss Seattle. He did not lie about that. Off the record, we asked him what he missed most about Seattle. He just said the cold, man, the rain. I'm not about that hot life. And he's been in hot climate teams in Orlando and Houston. So he definitely misses the city. He was absolutely taken back by the whole ceremony. He said he teared up. He saw his teammates, his former teammates, Seattle Sounders teammates, tear up. So that was pretty interesting. So yeah, man, in a nutshell, I did ask him if he was hurt by the whole situation. And I asked him, is it a natural feeling to just feel hurt? And he said, yeah, I was disappointed. I was hurt, and I'm not going to hide my feelings about it. So definitely something that tarnished the relationship. People were asking if he would ever be back for a 1-day contract. I don't think so. I think after this whole thing went about, he was touched by the photograph, by the signatures and things that were put on there, by the celebration. But after that, I think it's over and done with.
Why do you think Seattle did say no? And should they have signed him?
Yes. So I'm not sure what they said no. I really don't. I think that anytime that you're getting a player like Nico Lodeiro on a free with no salary responsibilities, you take them. I think they should have. As much as Kim Ki-hee is a player that you could use at the center back position, I feel like you would have gotten more out of a guy like Nico Lodeiro. I mean, when you look at the injuries that the Sounders have now, what better player to have than a guy like Nico Lodeiro? Who better to mentor and lead a guy like Pedro de la Vega? What better player to either, fill in for Ferreira at that cam position while Jordan Morris is nurturing an injury? A guy like Nico would have been fantastic. He knows the system. He loves the city. He's going to play for you all the time. He could also play holding mid the same way he did for Oscar Pareja, the way he's kind of playing for the Houston Dynamo. He might have lost a couple of steps, but he's a guy that could still make something happen. He's been good for Houston. He was good for Orlando City. I think that he had the stats. He had double digits assists last season. So I absolutely think that they should have signed him, and it would have taken nothing away from this team. It would have just added on, because anything that happened, the Ferreira, Mariola move, everything could have happened just adding a guy like Nico. And to me, that was a huge miss.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I'm just speculating, but I think that the way they must have been thinking of it was just like, sometimes you need to turn the page, But, like you said, they re-signed Kim Ki. This is a club that has a long track record of bringing guys back like this. And I guess it brings to mind, it seemed like there were similar not great feelings around when Rui Diaz left the club. Do you think this is like a recurring theme or something that the club needs to take a look at, of like not having, seems like, falling outs with some of their greatest ever players like this? Because this is two examples of it.
Yeah, unfortunately it is. And I think that there have been other situations that have not been as dramatic and as, in your face sort of situation. The Ozzy thing, he left upset. He obviously was the right move at the time by Garth Lagerwey, but then that kind of slowly faded out and he was able to come back. But I don't think that there was as much friction with the player. He obviously had the negotiations with Garth, but as far as we know, him and Brian were fine and there was no issues. I think that when it comes to Nico and Raul, there were questionable relationships at the end of their tenure with the coaching staff, or specifically with Brian, and then obviously with the front office at some point. So it is something that I think that they should look at. It is something that is hard to manage, because every player is going to want more and is going to want to stay, and you got to know when to turn the page. But the way you do that, the demeanor, the way you approach it, I feel like that's where the tactfulness of the club needs to be taken a look at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that the ceremony they did it up for him. And I thought that aspect of it was a good way to honor him. But I don't know. I think people are right to be kind of side-eyed how there seems to be these falling outs with club legends. You should try and avoid that if at all possible. I mean, these are two of the two main guys that delivered a ton of winning and trophies and great times and great memories to the city. So I definitely think it's you never want to see either Nico or Raul kind of feeling the way that they feel on their way out. Nico feeling rebuffed like that.
And if you look at both of their last seasons, they were both like almost catastrophic. I mean, do you remember that picture of Raul just on the ground of the training facility, just kind of sitting there? He was kept from a game and had to train individually.
They ended him, but then said it wasn't a suspension. Is that what happened?
Yes, exactly. It was an internal matter. And so, all of that situation was just rough. And, bringing him in 3 minutes into the game, I'm talking about Raul at the time, and then Nico, that was something that he came out and said it halfway through the season, that he wasn't going to come back because he didn't feel like the team wanted to re-sign him back. So both of those situations were just kind of toxic, and it's odd that a team like Seattle, that in the past has been labeled as a very pro player, and we're bringing everybody back, and we've brought back Gonzalo, and we've brought back Freddie Montero, and all of these players. It seems like that's changed over the years.